You know, there comes a moment in every person's life when something shifts, something fundamental changes inside you, and suddenly the world you thought you knew doesn't make sense anymore. You look around and you realize that everything you've been chasing, everything you've been running after, all the goals and achievements and possessions, they feel empty. They feel meaningless. And in that moment, you might find yourself thinking something that sounds absolutely crazy to everyone around you. You might find yourself thinking, I don't want to exist anymore. Now, before you get worried, before you think this is about something dark or troubling, let me tell you what I'm really talking about. I'm talking about that sacred moment when the false self, the ego, the person you thought you were, begins to die. And when that happens, when that artificial construction starts to crumble, there's a part of you that wants to hold on so desperately to what you know, even though what you know has been causing you suffering. But there's another part of you, a wiser part, that knows something beautiful is happening. Something miraculous is taking place. The desire not to exist that comes after awakening isn't about wanting to end your physical life. It's about the end of living as a separate self, cut off from the source of all creation. It's about the death of the ego, that voice in your head that's been telling you who you are, what you should want, what you should fear, and how you should live. That ego has been running the show for so long that when it starts to fade, when it starts to dissolve, it can feel like you're disappearing. And in a way, you are. The you that you thought you were is disappearing, but what's being revealed is something far more magnificent. Think about it this way. You spend your entire life building this identity. You're told from the moment you can understand language that you are your name, you are your body, you are your thoughts, you are your achievements, you are your failures, you are your relationships, you are your nationality, you are your religion, you are your political beliefs. Layer after layer after layer, you pile on these identifications until you have this heavy, solid sense of self. And you walk around defending this self, protecting this self, trying to make this self look good in the eyes of others, trying to prove this self is worthy, is valuable, is important. But then something happens. Maybe it's a crisis. Maybe it's a loss. Maybe it's a moment of quiet reflection. Maybe it's years of spiritual practice. Maybe it's all of these things combined, and suddenly you see through it. You see that this self you've been so busy defending and promoting isn't really who you are at all. It's just a story. It's just a collection of thoughts and beliefs and memories that you've woven together into what you call me. And when you see this, really see this, not just intellectually but experientially, something profound happens. The ego begins to die. Now, the ego doesn't go quietly. It doesn't say, oh, you figured me out. Okay, I'll just step aside now. No, the ego fights back. It creates fear. It creates confusion. It creates that sensation of not wanting to exist. Because from the ego's perspective, if it's not in charge, if it's not the center of your universe, then there's nothing. There's oblivion. There's annihilation. The ego cannot conceive of life without itself at the center, so it interprets its own death as your death. But here's what the ego doesn't understand, what it can't understand. When the ego dies, you don't die. In fact, for the first time in your life, you truly begin to live. You begin to experience life without the constant filter of me and mine, without the endless commentary of, I like this, I don't like that, this is good for me, that's bad for me, I want more of this, I want less of that. You begin to experience life directly, immediately, fully, without the barrier of the separate self standing between you and reality. This is what all the great spiritual teachers throughout history have been pointing to. They've used different words, different metaphors, different frameworks, but they're all saying the same thing. You are not who you think you are. You are not your ego. You are not your thoughts. You are not your story. You are something far more vast, far more infinite, far more beautiful than the limited self you've been pretending to be. And when you start to wake up to this truth, when you start to have these glimpses of your true nature, there can be this intense desire to let go completely of the old way of being. There can be this yearning to dissolve entirely into that infinite awareness, to just stop playing the game of being a separate person. And this is what I'm calling the desire not to exist. It's not suicidal. It's not pathological. It's actually quite natural. It's the soul's longing to return home, to reunite with the source, to remember what it truly is. But here's the paradox, and this is crucial to understand. The very desire to not exist, the very wanting to escape from the ego, is itself an ego desire. It's the ego in disguise, pretending to be spiritual, pretending to be enlightened. Because true awakening isn't about escaping life. It's not about disappearing into some formless void. It's about showing up more fully, more completely, more authentically than you ever have before, but without the burden of the false self. You see, the ego wants everything to be dramatic. It wants awakening to be this big cosmic event where you transcend the world and float off into nirvana. But real awakening is much more ordinary than that. It's about being right here, right now, fully present, fully engaged, fully alive, but without the constant self-referential thinking that makes everything about me. It's about living from a place of pure awareness, pure presence, pure being, while still functioning in the world. Still taking care of your responsibilities, still loving your family, still doing your work, but doing it all without the ego's agenda, without the ego's fear, without the ego's endless desire for more. So when you feel that desire not to exist, when you feel that pull toward dissolution, toward disappearing, pause for a moment and ask yourself, who wants to disappear? Who is it that doesn't want to exist? And you'll find that it's the ego itself. It's the very thing that needs to die that's trying to orchestrate its own death on its own terms. But the ego can't kill itself. The ego can't transcend itself. The only thing that can happen is that you, as awareness, as consciousness itself, stop identifying with the ego. You stop believing its story. You stop energizing its drama. And when that happens, when you truly let go of identification with the ego, you don't cease to exist. You don't disappear into nothingness. Instead, you realize that you've always been the nothingness out of which everything arises. You've always been the silence behind all sound. You've always been the stillness behind all movement. You've always been the awareness in which all experience occurs. You haven't gone anywhere. You've just stopped pretending to be something you're not. This is the great paradox of awakening. You have to die to live. The caterpillar has to dissolve in the cocoon to become the butterfly. The seed has to break open in the darkness of the soil to become the tree. And you, as the false self, as the ego, have to die to realize what you truly are. But this death isn't an ending. It's a beginning. It's a birth into your true nature. Now, I want to talk about what this process actually feels like. Because I think a lot of people who go through this get scared and think something is wrong with them. They think they're having a breakdown when they're actually having a breakthrough. So let me describe some of the signs, some of the symptoms, if you will, of ego death and awakening. First, there's often a loss of motivation for the things that used to drive you. The career ambitions, the social climbing, the accumulation of wealth and possessions, the need to impress others, all of this starts to feel hollow and meaningless. You look at your old goals and you think, why did I ever care about that? Why did I think that would make me happy? And this can be terrifying because our entire society is built on these kinds of goals and ambitions. Everyone around you is still chasing these things, and here you are suddenly not caring about them anymore. You can feel lost, adrift, purposeless. But what's really happening is that you're letting go of the ego's agenda. You're letting go of the false motivations that were never truly yours to begin with. They were just conditioning, just programming, just the collective dream that you bought into. And now that you're waking up from that dream, you need time to discover what your true purpose is, what your authentic expression is, what you're really here to do and be. Second, there's often a sense of detachment from your own life. You look at your relationships, your home, your job, your daily routines, and it all feels like you're watching a movie. You're there, you're going through the motions, but there's this sense that it's all happening to someone else. There's a distance, a gap between you and your life. And this can make you feel disconnected, isolated, alone. You might wonder if you're becoming cold, if you're losing your humanity, if you're turning into some kind of emotionless robot. But what's actually happening is that you're beginning to identify less with the character in the movie and more with the awareness that's watching the movie. You're beginning to realize that you are not the person that things happen to. You are the consciousness in which the person and their experiences appear. This is a huge shift in identity, and it takes time to adjust to it. Eventually, you learn to be fully engaged in your life while simultaneously being aware that you are not limited to your life. You can be in the world but not of the world, as the saying goes. Third, there's often a period of what I call the dark night of the soul. This is when everything you believed in, everything you relied on for security and identity falls away, but the new understanding hasn't fully dawned yet. You're in this in-between space, this liminal zone where the old has died but the new hasn't been born. And this space can feel like death itself. It can feel like annihilation. It can feel like you're going crazy. You might have moments of intense despair, intense fear, intense confusion. You might feel like you're losing your mind. But you're not losing your mind. You're losing your identification with your mind. You're losing the belief that you are your thoughts. And when you've spent your entire life believing that you are your thoughts, when those thoughts become chaotic or stop making sense or lose their power over you, it can feel like you're dissolving. But again, what's dissolving is only the false self. The true you, the awareness that you are, is always present, always stable, always here. Fourth, there's often a change in your relationship to time. The constant future orientation that drives most people's lives, the endless planning and worrying and anticipating, starts to lose its grip on you. You find yourself spending more time in the present moment, more time in the now. And at first, this can feel strange, almost disorienting. You might feel like you're wasting time, like you should be doing something, achieving something, getting somewhere. The ego is very uncomfortable with just being. The ego always wants to be becoming, always wants to be moving towards some future goal. But as you settle into presence, as you become more comfortable with simply being here now, you realize that this is where life actually happens. Life never happens in the future. Life never happens in the past. Life only happens now. And when you're fully present, when you're fully here, you realize that this moment is enough. This moment is complete. This moment lacks nothing. There's nowhere to get to, nothing to achieve, nothing to become. You already are what you've been seeking. You've always been what you've been seeking. Fifth, and this is particularly relevant to our topic, there's often this feeling of not wanting to engage with the world anymore. You might feel like withdrawing from society, from relationships, from responsibilities. You might fantasize about going off to live in a cave or a monastery, somewhere where you can just be alone with this new awareness, this new understanding. You might feel like the demands of ordinary life are too much, too draining, too incompatible with your awakening. And there's a place for retreat, for withdrawal, for solitude. There are times when you need to step back from the world to integrate what's happening to you. But if this withdrawal becomes permanent, if it becomes a way of escaping from life rather than a temporary respite to deepen your understanding, then it's the ego again, just in a different disguise. The ego loves to make spirituality into another form of separation, another way to be special, another way to avoid the messy, beautiful, challenging experience of being human. True awakening doesn't take you out of the world. It brings you more fully into the world. It allows you to engage with life more completely, more passionately, more compassionately than ever before, but without the ego's agenda, without the ego's fear, without the ego's need for everything to be a certain way. So how do you navigate this territory? How do you work with this desire not to exist that comes after awakening? How do you allow the ego to die without falling into nihilism or depression or escapism? First, you need to understand that what you're going through is normal. It's not pathological. It's not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that something is finally going right. You're waking up. You're seeing through the illusion. You're beginning to realize your true nature. And this process isn't always comfortable. Growth rarely is. Transformation requires the death of the old, and death, even symbolic death, even necessary death, can be painful. Second, you need to be gentle with yourself. You need to give yourself time and space to integrate what's happening. You can't force awakening. You can't push the ego to die faster than it's ready to die. You have to allow the process to unfold in its own time, in its own way. And during this time, you need to take care of yourself. You need to eat well, sleep well, move your body, spend time in nature, be with people who support you. You need to treat yourself with the same kindness and compassion you would offer to anyone going through a difficult transition. Third, you need to stay grounded in the practical realities of life. You need to keep showing up for your responsibilities. You need to keep paying your bills, taking care of your health, maintaining your relationships. Awakening doesn't exempt you from being human. It doesn't give you permission to neglect your obligations or abandon your commitments. In fact, awakening should make you more responsible, more reliable, more trustworthy, because you're no longer acting from the ego's agenda. You're acting from a place of integrity and authenticity. Fourth, you need to find ways to express what's happening to you. You need to talk about it, write about it, create art about it, move your body in response to it. You need to give form to the formless, to bring the invisible into the visible. This isn't about making your awakening into a performance or a spiritual identity. It's about honoring the transformation that's occurring and allowing it to flow through you into the world. Fifth, And this is crucial. You need to remember that the desire not to exist is ultimately a misunderstanding. What you really desire is not non-existence, but the end of the suffering that comes from identifying with the ego. You want the peace that comes when the constant mental chatter stops. You want the freedom that comes when you're no longer bound by fear and desire. You want the joy that comes when you realize your true nature. But all of these things are available to you right here, right now, in this body, in this life, in this world. You don't have to disappear to find them. You just have to stop pretending to be something you're not. The ego is like a wave on the ocean that believes it's separate from the ocean. The wave looks at the other waves and thinks, I'm different from them. I'm unique. I'm special. And the wave looks at the ocean and thinks, I'm separate from that. I'm not the ocean. I'm just a wave. And the wave spends its entire existence trying to be a better wave, a bigger wave, a more impressive wave, all the while suffering from this fundamental misunderstanding of what it is. But then one day, the wave wakes up. The wave looks around and realizes, wait a minute, I'm not separate from the ocean. I am the ocean. I've always been the ocean. The wave is just a temporary form that the ocean is taking. And when this wave dissolves, I don't die. I just return to what I've always been. And when the wave realizes this, all fear dissolves. All sense of lack dissolves. All need to be different or better or more dissolves. The wave can just enjoy being a wave for as long as the wave lasts, knowing that its true nature is infinite, eternal, unchanging. This is what awakening reveals. You are not the wave. You are the ocean. You are not the form. You are the formless awareness in which all forms appear and disappear. You are not the character in the story. You are the consciousness reading the story. And when you truly realize this, not just as a concept, but as a lived experience, you understand that you cannot not exist. Existence is your very nature. Being is what you are. Consciousness is your essence. You can't destroy it, you can't lose it, you can't escape from it, because you are it. So the desire not to exist is really a desire to stop pretending that you're limited, that you're separate, that you're small. It's a desire to let go of the false self and rest in your true nature. And this is possible. This is available. This is your birthright. But it requires a willingness to let go, a willingness to surrender, a willingness to die to everything you think you know about yourself. And let me tell you, this dying is the most beautiful thing that can happen to a human being. When the ego dies, love is born. When the false self dissolves, compassion flows naturally. When the sense of separation ends, connection with all of life becomes your natural state. You stop seeing the world as full of threats and competitors and obstacles. You start seeing the world as an expression of the same consciousness that you are. You start seeing other people not as separate beings, but as yourself in different forms. You start seeing all of life as sacred, as divine, as worthy of reverence and respect. This is what happens when you allow the ego to die. You don't become less human. You become more human. You don't lose your personality. Your true personality finally has room to emerge. You don't become passive or indifferent or disconnected. You become more engaged, more alive, more present than you've ever been. But you do all of this without the ego's constant interference, without the ego's constant judgment, without the ego's constant fear. And yes, there will still be challenges. There will still be pain and loss and difficulty. Awakening doesn't make you immune to the human experience, but it changes your relationship to that experience. You no longer resist what is. You no longer fight against reality. You no longer create unnecessary suffering by wishing things were different than they are. You learn to accept what is, to work with what is, to find peace in what is, while still taking appropriate action to improve conditions where you can. This is the art of living as an awakened being. You're fully human and fully divine at the same time. You're the wave in the ocean. You're the form and the formless. You're the individual expression and the universal consciousness. And there's no contradiction in this. There's no conflict. It's the most natural thing in the world once you stop believing the ego's story about separation. So if you're feeling this desire not to exist, if you're going through this dark night of ego death, know that you're not alone. Know that this is a sacred process. Know that what's dying needs to die so that what's true can be revealed. Have patience with yourself. Have compassion for yourself. Have trust in the process. And know that on the other side of this death is a life more vibrant, more meaningful, more joyful than anything the ego could ever create. The ego promises you fulfillment in the future. It tells you that when you get the right job, the right relationship, the right body, the right amount of money, then you'll be happy. Then you'll be complete. Then you'll be at peace. But this is a lie. It's always been a lie. The ego can never be satisfied because satisfaction would mean its own death. The ego needs to keep you in a state of lack, a state of wanting, a state of not enoughness, because that's what keeps it alive. But when you wake up, when you see through this mechanism, you realize that fulfillment was never in the future. Fulfillment is here now. Completeness is here now. Peace is here now. You just had to stop looking for it in the places the ego told you to look. You had to stop seeking and start being. You had to stop becoming and start recognizing what you already are. And this recognition is available to everyone. It doesn't matter what your life circumstances are. It doesn't matter what mistakes you've made. It doesn't matter what traumas you've experienced. It doesn't matter what your education level is or what your bank account looks like or what your social status is. Awakening is your natural state. It's what you are underneath all the conditioning, all the programming, all the false beliefs. It's always here, always available, always waiting for you to stop and notice it. So stop. Right now, stop. Stop the endless mental activity. Stop the constant doing. Stop the perpetual seeking. Just be still. Just be quiet. Just be here. And notice what's here when everything else falls away. Notice the awareness that's reading these words. Notice the consciousness that's witnessing your experience. Notice the presence that's always here, never changing, never moving, never affected by anything that happens in your life. That's who you are. That's what you are. That's your true nature. And when you rest in this, when you abide as this, the desire not to exist transforms into something else entirely. It transforms into a willingness to be here, fully here, completely here, without reservation, without resistance, without the need for anything to be different. This is the gift of ego death. This is the blessing of awakening. This is what's waiting for you on the other side of the fear. The ego dies, but you don't. The false self dissolves, but your true self is revealed. The dream ends, but reality begins. And reality, it turns out, is far more beautiful, far more magnificent, far more alive than any dream could ever be. So let the ego die. Let it go. Stop defending it. Stop protecting it. Stop trying to improve it or fix it or make it better. Just let it go. Surrender to what is. Surrender to the present moment. Surrender to your true nature. And watch as life transforms from a burden into a blessing, from a problem into a miracle, from something to escape into something to celebrate. You don't need to not exist. You need to stop existing as a lie and start existing as the truth. You need to stop being who you think you are and start being who you truly are. And who you truly are is infinite, eternal, unchanging awareness, temporarily taking the form of a human being, here to experience life, to express love, to create beauty, to serve the evolution of consciousness itself. This is your calling. This is your purpose. This is why you're here, not to accumulate possessions or achievements or accolades, not to impress anyone or prove anything or compete with anyone, but simply to be yourself, your true self, your authentic self, and to allow that self to shine into the world without fear, without hesitation, without apology. When you do this, when you live from this place, everything changes. Your relationships become real. Your work becomes meaningful. Your days become sacred. Every moment becomes an opportunity to choose love over fear, to choose presence over distraction, to choose truth over illusion. And this is the life that's available to you right now, not someday in the future, not after you achieve some special state or reach some spiritual milestone, but right now, in this moment, exactly as you are. The only thing standing between you and this life is the ego, that false sense of self that insists on being special, being separate, being in control. And the ego doesn't have to be fought or conquered or destroyed through effort. It simply has to be seen through, recognized for what it is. A collection of thoughts and beliefs with no inherent reality, no permanent existence, no power except what you give it. So see through it. Stop believing its story. Stop identifying with its narrative. Stop giving it your energy and attention. And as you do this, as you withdraw your investment in the ego, it naturally begins to fade. It loses its grip. It loses its power. And what remains is what has always been here. The pure awareness that you are, the consciousness that is your true nature, the presence that can never be harmed, never be diminished, never be lost. This is the truth of who you are. This is the reality of your being. This is the answer to every question, the solution to every problem, the fulfillment of every longing. You are that which you seek. You have always been that which you seek. You just forgot for a while, got lost in the ego's dream, believed the story of separation, But now you're waking up. Now you're remembering. Now you're coming home to yourself. And yes, the process can be intense. Yes, it can feel like death. Yes, it can bring up this desire to stop existing. But stay with it, trust it, allow it. Because what's on the other side is worth every moment of discomfort, every moment of fear, every moment of uncertainty. What's on the other side is freedom. What's on the other side is peace. What's on the other side is love. What's on the other side is you, your true you, the you that has always been here, waiting patiently for the ego to exhaust itself so that you could finally be seen. So be patient, be compassionate, be gentle with yourself as you go through this transition, and know that you're not just doing this for yourself. You're doing this for everyone. Because every person who wakes up, every person who allows their ego to die, every person who realizes their true nature, makes it easier for others to do the same. You become a light in the darkness, a beacon for others who are lost in the ego's dream, a living example of what's possible when you let go of the false and rest in the true. This is the greatest service you can offer to the world. Not your accomplishments, not your achievements, not your contributions in the conventional sense, but simply your presence, your awakened presence, your conscious presence. When you're awake, when you're present, when you're embodying your true nature, you affect everyone around you without even trying. You raise the vibration. You uplift the consciousness. You remind others of what they truly are just by being what you truly are. So don't resist this process. Don't fight against the death of the ego. Welcome it. Invite it. Cooperate with it. Because it's not really death at all. It's birth. It's the birth of your true self. It's the birth of authentic life. It's the birth of real existence as opposed to the pseudo-existence of the ego. And this birth, like all births, requires that something old must pass away to make room for the new. Let it pass. Let the ego go. Let the false self dissolve. And trust that what emerges will be more true, more real, more alive than anything that came before. Trust that you are being guided, that you are being held, that you are being loved by something far greater than the ego, far greater than the individual self, far greater than anything the mind can conceive. This is the intelligence that beats your heart, that grows your hair, that digests your food, that heals your wounds. This is the consciousness that creates galaxies and atoms, that manifests as both the infinite and the infinitesimal, that appears as everything while remaining as nothing. And this is what you are. This is your true identity. This is your real nature. So rest in this. Abide as this. Live from this. And watch as the desire not to exist transforms into the joy of existing as you truly are. No longer burdened by the ego's constant demands, no longer limited by the ego's narrow perspective, no longer suffering from the ego's fundamental misunderstanding of what you are. You are not here to not exist. You are here to exist fully, completely, totally, as the magnificent expression of consciousness that you are. And when you do this, when you allow yourself to be yourself without apology or reservation, you fulfill your purpose. You complete your mission. You become who you came here to be. And that, my friend, is the greatest gift you can give to yourself and to the world. Not your absence, but your presence. Not your escape, but your engagement. Not your death, but your life, your real life, your true life. The life that's been waiting for you all along, just on the other side of the ego's last desperate attempt to survive by convincing you that you don't want to exist. See through it. It's just the ego's final trick. And when you do see through it, you'll laugh at the absurdity of it all. You'll wonder how you ever believed that you could not exist when existence is your very nature. You'll marvel at how you ever thought you were separate when unity is all there is. You'll be amazed at how you ever felt alone when you are the one consciousness appearing as everything and everyone. This is the truth. This is the reality. This is what awakening reveals. And it's here for you now, not later, not someday, but now. All you have to do is stop running, stop seeking, stop trying to be anything other than what you already are. Just be still. Just be quiet. Just be here. And notice what was here all along, what has always been here, what will always be here, the eternal presence that you are, that I am, that we all are, playing this beautiful game of life, wearing these temporary costumes we call bodies and personalities, but never for a moment ceasing to be what we truly are. Infinite consciousness, eternal awareness, boundless love. This is your inheritance. This is your destiny. This is your truth. Claim it, own it, be it, and let the ego die in peace, knowing that it served its purpose, that it helped you navigate the world of form, but that now it's time to remember what you are beyond all form, beyond all identity, beyond all separation. You are home. You have always been home. You just forgot for a while, but now you remember, and that changes everything.